Okay, so we're looking for advantages and disadvantages of generating electricity using solar farms. It's a four marker, so two advantages, two disadvantages. That's what we're aiming for. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at the advantages. Of course, a number one advantage of solar is that it's renewable. Okay. That's it. We don't need any further explanation. We just need that word, and that's going to get us the mark, right? The another advantage is that it doesn't produce any CO2. Okay, and that's important because CO2 is a greenhouse gas. Okay, which means that we're not contributing to anthropogenic climate change because it's not producing CO2. You've got to be really specific here, though. You've got to talk about a named greenhouse gas. Okay, you can't just say it's clean energy, because what does that actually mean? We need something deeper than that at IGCSE. Okay, so specifically, it doesn't produce CO2, it doesn't produce greenhouse gases, and therefore it doesn't feed anthropogenic climate change. There is a third advantage in that, basically sunshine is free. Okay, and if you compare that to fossil fuels, then there's going to be no fuel costs. Okay, you don't have to keep, filling it up with diesel or putting more coal into it or putting more gas into it. And then obviously because of that, you don't have any transportation costs for the energy either. Okay, but yeah, so those are the three best ways to address the advantages. For disadvantages, okay, the sun doesn't shine all the time. Okay, why? Because daytime versus nighttime. Okay, or it could be sunny days versus cloudy days. Okay. So you can have, either one of these kind of ideas for that first marking point. The the most sensible place to build solar power stations, solar farms, is near the equator. Why? Because if you have a look at the planet here, spinning on its axis, okay, and the sun's over here, okay, shining onto. Oh. It's not brilliant. Let's do it this way, right? Because then you can see that if your solar panels are in the northern hemisphere in winter, okay, then they're going to be generating hardly any, because look, the sunlight's only just barely hitting that, right? Whereas if you're near the equator, okay, the same size solar panel is going to be, the solar radiation is, incident on that is going to be much greater power output from those, right? So geographical location, particularly in terms of how close to the poles that you are, is going to be an important factor in determining whether that's a good option or not. And then finally, you can see from the picture that it requires large spaces, large open spaces. And if you were going to chop down a tropical rainforest to build a solar farm, then obviously that would be a really bad idea. Okay, so that's why building solar farms in the desert or other degraded, other ecosystems that don't have, direct use for farming and housing for humans is kind of generally considered the best option for that. Although it is actually possible to, do kind of mixed solar farms where you've got grazing between them, but yeah, it is taking up some farmland or taking up land for humans to build on or something like that. So that could be perceived as a third disadvantage. It's a good idea to avoid discussions about the cost of the setup cost. And that's because the cost of installing solar panels over the last few years has absolutely plummeted. Okay, and it's now cheaper to install solar than it is to build a fossil fuel power station. Plus the fact that when you're running it, you don't have to pay for the sunlight. whereas you do have to pay for the fuel for a fossil fuel power station. Yeah, high setup cost used to be a thing, all right, but over the last few years, it's definitely not become a thing, and the exam boards are recognising that with their mark schemes, and they're no longer awarding the mark for saying high setup cost for solar. So best to avoid that and learn these, advantages and disadvantages instead.